So Noah Schnapp was once quite liked by Gen Z leftist fans of Stranger Things because he came out as gay last year, attended pride parades and stuff like that. So generally, they liked him, thought he was a pretty progressive guy. But then when Noah Schnapp visited Israel in 2023, he started getting some criticism. And then, of course, he posted some pretty terrible things, which we're going to talk about. And then when he posts all the cast together for filming Stranger Things Season 5, he had to turn off his Instagram comments because literally every single one was hating on him. Like the top ones: "This is your last time acting. That's crazy. You still have a job. Nobody cares. Boycotting. Wishing you weren't there. Should have replaced your character. Can you be replaced or what? Why are you there? It's so sad that they didn't fire you. Enjoy it while it lasts, bro. This is going to be your last job. We do not care. Hell is waiting for you, my dear. How are you still being employed by them?" And I'm not joking. Go check it out for yourself. It just goes on and on and on. Because what people like Noah kind of miscalculated is that you can pay a lot of lip service to Israel and what they've been doing right now, but Netflix has an international audience. Loads of people from around the entire world absolutely love Stranger Things. And yes, most young people around the world, even in Western countries, don't support Israel. So don't be shocked when your whole fan base turn against you. I'm going to explain the situation. I'm going to explain his latest kind of non-apology. And I'm probably going to be more fair to him and compassionate than I should be, because I actually want to talk about Birthright. And I want to explain how the Zionist lobby kind of target people like him as spokespeople, and kind of talk about how, in my opinion, he could somewhat redeem himself, because he's really stuck himself into it by having these terrible, terrible views and saying terrible things during the most probably hostile period the Palestinians have faced in decades, probably since 1967. But in many ways this feels worse because no one is backing them up. So in that, if he wants some sort of atonement, I feel like he'd have to become some sort of spokesperson of how groups like Birthright target people like him and indoctrinate him in gross Zionism, and kind of make him a spokesperson for that. And it kind of reminds me when Seth Rogen started talking about how he was indoctrinated in supporting Israel as a young kid at Hebrew school. And what they'd say to him is that when the Jews got there after World War II, there was no one there. It was just an empty desert, and the reason people hate Israel is because they hate Jewish people, right? And he was brainwashed for years, and that's what he thought Israel was, until he got older and realised, yeah, there was actually, millions of people who weren't Jews living there for centuries, and then this new state came along that was built upon, their bodies, their cleansing. And in my opinion, it's clear Noah Schnapp has also been indoctrinated in a very similar way, but the problem being, this is the age of the internet, and also the problem being, like I said, what Israel's doing to the Palestinians doesn't really have an equal in recent history. So all of that combined together with his Gen Z left-leaning audience of Stranger Things, and what you have is a guy who's probably clearly panicking that he's ruined his life right now. And as a lot of people are going to point out, and as I feel myself, he's not sorry for saying these things. Right now, he's not. He's not sorry. He's just realising that, oh, damn, if I lose all my fans, I'm not going to be someone who has a future, a good future career in Hollywood, right? So I want to talk about all of that today, and I want to go into detail, what Birthright is, and how they obviously just brainwash young Jews, Western Jews especially, into being huge supporters for Israel with these all-expenses-paid fun trips to Israel run by right-wing Zionists, and often having IDF soldiers as your guide. So all of that coming up for you today. Also just, check me out on social media, mainly on Instagram for personal stuff, and also consider supporting me on Patreon if you want to support the channel and get access to the Discord server. So let's go on to the recent stuff with Noah. So if you guys aren't aware of the context, basically 2023 is the year he went to Israel on this Birthright trip. So he posted a lot about Israel on his Instagram account, getting a lot of hate, but not insane hate. I was actually going to make a video on it, but I didn't think there was enough to it. But he posted a lot of videos there, like partying with like lots of young people, doing like religious stuff as well. So obviously he put out that statement at the start in October, talking about being afraid, saying that he wants peace for both the Israelis and Palestinians, talking about how people were silent in supporting Israel, saying that the Jewish people are seeing your silence and we won't forget it. And although he quoted it in like supporting like both sides, Palestinians and Israelis, it's pretty clear he wasn't doing that, especially when he followed it up by having a video of him and his friends posting about like Zionism being sexy, and then liking like these really bad comedy sketches about LGBT people supporting Palestine and how that's just like really, really hypocritical, right? So yeah, seemingly not very apologetic, not very pro-Palestinian, and also like very much brainwashed in Zionist propaganda. But like I said, he had that Instagram post where literally all the comments were hating on him, and season 5 of Stranger Things is coming out soon, which, you know, you'd assume he has a big role in. And he posted this on his TikTok, and he had to turn the comments off. So let's listen to what he said, and then I want to talk about it.
Hey guys, it's Noah. I just wanted to come on here super briefly just to discuss everything that's been going on online. I feel like my thoughts and beliefs have been so far misconstrued from anything even close to what I believe. And I wanted to just state from my heart how I feel. I only want peace and safety and security for all innocent people affected by this conflict. I've had many open discussions with friends from Palestinian background, and I think those are very important conversations to have, and I've learned a lot. And one of the takeaways I've had is that we all hope for the same things, that being those innocent people still being held hostage in Gaza to be returned to their families, and equally hope for an end to the loss of innocent life in Palestine, so many of those people being women and children. And it's horrible to see. And I think anyone with any ounce of humanity would hope for an end to the hostility on both sides. I stand against any killing of any innocent people, and I hope you guys all do too. And I just hope to one day see those two groups be able to live harmoniously together in that region. And I hope for 2024 online to see people be a little more understanding and compassionate and recognize that we're all human, regardless of our race, of our ethnicity, of our background, of our country of birth, of our even our sexuality, of anything. We are all human and we're all the same. And we should all love each other for that and support each other and stand together for humanity and for peace.
So I'm not really expecting much from Hollywood celebrities at all. And if he put out this statement when it all kicked off in October, I wouldn't really have much of a problem with it. It's when he says this after everything he said, some people pointing out he does keep looking off to the right all the time. It looks like it's scripted. I'd assume it probably is scripted. Talks about talking to Palestinians, and I'm like, I don't really believe that, because if you actually did, I think you might be a bit more horrified. If you are really in this, you know, Zionist bubble where you don't hear Palestinian perspectives and you don't hear about what's happening, and even framing it like a conflict at this point feels a bit redundant. Talk about the hostages, but, you know, we all know Israel don't care about the hostages. And even they've admitted themselves that it's their fault a lot of them are dead, right? This isn't an apology. And to me, even if this has some sincerity to it, the sincerity is he's sick of getting backlash online for every single thing he posts because everyone's talking about Palestine all the time, right? And you could make an argument, and I would say this, is that there is more of a focus on him compared to other people who talk about this. And that's for the reasons I've said, right? Like, there's been other people who've said way more terrible things about Israel, like in their support for Israel, than he has. But he's miscalculated, like I said, in that because he's young, gay, has a lot of fans around the world who are a similar age who support Palestine, because most of us young people do, and they're just never going to let him forget it, that at a time that looked most bleak for Palestinians, he supported the Israelis doing what they've been doing over the last 3+ months, right? So they'll never let him forget it, and we're going to talk about that a bit later. But yeah, I'm not giving this guy any leeway in terms of it's very easy to see what's happening. And, like, where is your humanity? I don't care what you've been brainwashed into. Where is your humanity when you see these videos of Palestinians? You don't feel something inside of you, and you don't realise who, like, the bad guys in the situation are. I'm not even talking about, like, taking a side necessarily. It's more like you can see the very, very visible face of Israeli fascism right now, which has infested the whole of society. Like, most Zionist Jews who live in Israel support what's going on, right? And the majority of them actually want even more of it. A lot of people's problems is they hate Netanyahu, right? They don't hate what's going on. So in that, you should see that this society is not okay. It's like a Starship Troopers society. But also, I think for a lot of these people, you're rich, Hollywood celeb, Zionist bubble, all you really consume is like this Zionist propaganda. But in your day-to-day, you don't really have to think about these things. And also, it's clear, maybe in the Stranger Things bubble as well, that he has friends who think just like him. So one of his co-stars, Brett Gelman, he plays the character Murray in Stranger Things, he came out and defended him, saying, Brett says he actually liked the viral photos of Noah with stickers reading Zionism is sexy. He goes even further, telling us anyone who is not pro-Israel is consciously or subconsciously being anti-Semitic. And then if you go on Brett's Twitter, he's even worse than Noah, but obviously he's not getting the same spotlight because he's not as famous and he doesn't have fans with young people, I guess. He's retweeting that Hen Mazig guy, just posts non-stop Zionist propaganda, says stuff like this: Zionism only means that you believe Israel has a right to exist. Nope. It does not mean you are for the deaths of innocent Palestinians. It actually has nothing to do with the war. But what's going on right now is the Zionists trying to complete the Zionist project of taking over the whole of Palestine for their Israeli state. If you believe in Zionism, it means you believe in colonialism and settler colonialism and the right to build a country on the bodies and cleansing of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people since the 1940s. But yeah, this guy just non-stop pro-Israeli propaganda. Jewish people standing up for their own dignity and self-determination does not mean that we're against Palestinian dignity and self-determination, nor do we support Bibi. Those concluding otherwise is straight up bigotry. Again, basically saying everyone criticising him is like an anti-Semite. So the ideologies of both the far left and far right are seizing on this moment to silence us in one way or another. These ideologies are both connected to religions that really didn't like us when we wouldn't convert. Now they want us to convert to the ideology or else be punished. I'm a liberal. That's like being woke without hating Jews and defending radical jihadis. So again, like, this guy is obviously being way more confrontational, way more aggressive, but he's not getting the spotlight, and that's just because he's not famous and he doesn't probably have any fans. You know, because I actually have good taste in just everything. I don't watch Stranger Things, so I don't know who Murray is, but maybe Murray isn't a popular character, but maybe he is. But I have never heard of this guy, and it seems like the only hate he's getting is like from Twitter lefties who don't really know who he is anyway. But why I share that with you is that it's clear that Noah does have people in the cast who will go up to him and say, what you said is fine, right? And there probably is a bubble in Hollywood which is pro-Israel as an extension of being pro-American foreign policy, American military, and then obviously like America generally and the American entertainment industry just has loads of people who are pro-Zionist for varying different reasons. Either they're pro-American foreign policy, either they are evangelicals who support it out of some sort of bizarre Christian Zionism, or they are just like liberal pro-Zionists, basically, right? So you have all that, and I think genuinely Noah is not going to be sorry as long as he's in that bubble, and it's clear he's not sorry. It's more like a self-preservation thing. It's more of like, I can't believe everyone hates me now, because that's probably what he's feeling the most. And I said about Birthright to start with, I've been saying Noah went on Birthright, and I don't know 100% if his trip was organised by Birthright. I just got the vibe from that because he is like a young Jewish man. Then suddenly he's in Israel doing like all these very stereotypical like Birthright things. Probably was, but I don't think it really matters because it seemed like that was the type of trip it was anyway. And there's pictures of him posing with like IDF soldiers as well. So whether or not it was officially an organised Birthright trip, I think it's not completely relevant, but I still want to talk about this because like with Seth Rogen, he was talking about going to specifically like a Jewish school, teaching him about Israel. And there's something called Birthright, which gets offered to a lot of Jewish people in the West. You only need like one Jewish grandparent to even be offered it. And I wanted to talk about it. And I wanted to talk about this in relation to Noah Schnapp because if he actually wants to make amends, if he wants to atone, I think what he has to do is look at the reality of the situation, actually educate himself. And if he has been on a Birthright trip or whatever trip he went on that's organised by people to make him pro-Israel, speak out against that. Because only then will people forgive you. But if you don't want genuine forgiveness, you just want people to forget what you've said and move on so they like you again, then he's not going to do any of this. Now, let's talk about this. Because most of the most prominent anti-Zionist Jews were at one point Zionist Jews, right? Even Gabor Mate You know, it makes more sense because he grew up in Hungary in the 1940s. But even he said, you know, I supported Israel until I actually went there. And I was just absolutely horrified. And then since then, I've been a fighter against Israel, right? But now these days, this targeting of like young American Jews, and it can be like a variety of different trips. You can have more conservative ones. You can have more like pro-LGBT ones, progressive ones, because Israel does have a diverse set of political ideologies. They all just agree on like Israel should be built upon like another country and those people shouldn't have equal rights. This article by Kiera Feldman, and it's in 2011, but it's the only like really good article I could find on this, called The Romance of Birthright for the Nation. But let's get into it. So when Julie Feldman, then 26 and a Reform Jew from New York City, arrived at Ben Gurion Airport in December 2008, she called herself a blank slate. She returned as the attack on Gaza was underway, armed with a new pro-Israel outlook. Israel really changed me. I truly felt when I came back I was a different person. It was mission accomplished for Birthright Israel, the American Zionist organization that since its founding in 1999 spent almost $600 million to send more than 260,000 young diaspora Jews on free vacations to the Holy Land. Birthright co-founder Charles Bronfman claims he's just providing a free airfare and lodging. Then he says Israel does its magic. Indeed, in 2009, Brandeis University researchers found that almost 3/4 of alumni described their Birthright experience as life-changing. If you come here and you connect to the origins of the Jewish people, the country that forged our existence, our faith, our values, Netanyahu promised in a 2008 Birthright video, it will change your life forever. Barry Chazin, a Hebrew University professor emeritus and the architect of Birthright's curriculum, explains in a 2008 book that the trip is designed so travellers are bombarded with information. The goal is to produce an emotionally overwhelming experience that helps participants open themselves up to learning. On my own Birthright trip last year, I experienced the Chazin effect. Conceived as selling of Jewishness to Jews, in Bronfman's words, Birthright trips are offered in dozens of varieties, from secular to orthodox, from outdoorsy to LGBT-friendly, criss-crossing the country in rollicking tour buses. Birthright participants between 18 and 26 swim in the Dead Sea, ride camels, visit the occupied Golan Heights, listen to lectures on Zionism, and spend their nights boozing and flirting with IDF soldiers. So the article goes on to say that a lot of these tours are actually run by IDF soldiers who don't wear their uniform for the whole time, but everyone does know they are a soldier. And if you're wondering how Palestinians are spoke about on these trips, they're not really spoke about, but this person had a personal experience. Our guide, several times a day, he said things like, Arabs are those that originate from Saudi Arabia. Everything we saw in our tour bus window was in the Bible, quotes, reinforcing Zionist claims to the land. He used Palestinian interchangeably with terrorist, driving through northern Israel. He gave a lesson in Judaization, the government's term for its settlement policy. Passing through an Israeli Arab town, he called our attention to a little strewn road, and then pointed to a neat ring of state-subsidized Jewish towns. Judaization, he explained, was necessary to keep them from spreading. Talking about Palestinians and Arabs, Jared Mausin went on a 2007 Birthright trip where IDF soldiers role-played a checkpoint. The message was every single Palestinian is a threat until proven otherwise, he recalls. Very few trip providers offer sessions with Palestinian citizens of Israel. My trip, advertised as pluralist, met an Israeli Arab computer programmer who spoke briefly about legal discrimination against minorities, followed by an Israeli Arab teenager who called herself pro-Israel. When I asked her thoughts on the Palestinian right of return, she giggled, consulted with her Birthright activity leader, and said, I don't think it's time for them to come back. My requests for a full list of Arab-Israeli groups on Birthright itineraries were declined. But like I said, I don't know 100% that Noah Schnapp went on a Birthright organised tour. It was just giving me the vibe because he was with a bunch of other young people. He went to the religious sites. He went to like the popular tourist destinations. And because he's a certain age, I just felt like that was the vibe it was giving off, right? And because he comes back and then starts saying loads of pro-Israeli stuff, you can see how I can come to the conclusion that he was on like this Birthright tour. But regardless, even if he just went there, he's probably, you know, saw the reality of Israel in a very like isolated view of like going to the touristy spots, where you can convince yourselves there's nothing wrong with this country. There's nothing wrong with this settler colony. Look how progressive it is. Look at the gay scene in Tel Aviv. It's amazing. A progressive, democratic bastion in the backwards, barbaric Middle East. Who wouldn't defend that, right? And like I said, if people like Noah, and it doesn't just extend to him, it extends to a lot of people in America who do this propaganda, so many celebrities do this. If you ever want to atone for what you've done, and I don't know if it will ever be good enough, because we're always going to remember people like Noah Schnapp for saying this stuff during what's going on. We're always going to remember, like, even worse people, of course, like Amy Schumer and others. If you ever want to make some sort of, like, apology or atone, I would say expose how you're brainwashed into this stuff. Tell everyone that, yeah, we're not taught about the Palestinians. Tell everyone that, yeah, if you go on Birthright, there's not really mention of Palestinians apart from, like, racist dehumanization and people just ignoring everything about it, right? Talk about that stuff. Do what Seth Rogen did. Tell everyone how, yeah, when you go to school, if it's a certain school, you're just taught it's an empty desert before Israelis came there after World War II, right? Expose all that stuff, and then people might actually believe that you are apologetic and that you are a young, dumb guy who went to Israel and was brainwashed into his propaganda. Therefore, you couldn't understand how anyone would side against them, right? And you thought everyone who sided against them just didn't like Jewish people, whatever. I would say that would be the right step and path for someone like this if he was actually sorry and if he was actually worried about his words being misconstrued. Because at the moment, don't want people to get me wrong, he's not sorry. He didn't put out that apology because he felt bad. He didn't put out that apology video or that clarification video because he felt bad about what he did and said. He put it out because he's tired of the hate and he's realising that he might have ruined his own career by doing this. And it's like a culmination of factors. Like, sure, do I believe he's getting disproportionate hate? Yeah, I do, right? Compared to what other people have said, even some of his co-stars, yeah. That's just the nature of being a star of a show that is extremely popular with young people who support Palestinians, right? I'm not giving this guy a pass for what he said. At the same time, because he's a sheltered young person, I also think, especially growing up in a country like America and in Hollywood, which is pro-military, pro-American foreign policy, all that stuff, I also think that he could have been easily brainwashed into this stuff. And if he does want to redeem himself at all in the eyes of people, and you don't have to ever forgive this guy, by the way, I think exposing how he was brainwashed into this stuff would be a good step. If he doesn't want to do that, I would say even more so. You don't have to, forgive him at all. You can just remember him for what he's done. And I don't begrudge anyone from hating this guy for the rest of your lives, right? Neil Druckmann has ruined The Last of Us for me. And I'm someone who knew that The Last of Us was about Israel to start with. And I knew it was about liberal Zionism and stuff. Still liked it. But what he did, I'm just like, it's such a bad taste in my mouth. Now I see him at these award shows and I want to play The Last of Us again. I'm like, I can't disconnect that from him, even though I know loads of other people worked on this, right? And it's the same way. I'm sure people now can't disconnect Stranger Things from Noah Schnapp, because it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth, because then you also think that everyone else around him has to be somewhat okay with what he said. And that's the hard part to reconcile. It's like, even when you see Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey palling around with Neil Druckmann, you're like, oh, okay, you are okay with what he said to an extent, right? I guess the main thing is, if you support a fascist country doing just the most terrible, horrendous stuff, don't expect people to forgive and forget ever. And they have an absolute right to never forgive and never forget. And the only silver lining, maybe saving grace, is this guy is just a kid who was brainwashed, and he has time to make amends, really. He has time to expose how people like him are made to support this stuff, but I won't hold my breath. I am not expecting that, because it seems like everything he said since is about self-preservation. It's not about actually feeling bad for what he said. And I don't think he ever spoke to any Palestinians, by the way. But that is it for the video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.